Greetings. I'm in my little truck. I figured I don't know, do a video before I get out of it. Um, on one thing, really the main difference between gnostic teaching, trying to go back to whatever that was, the second, third century, or even back to the first. They were showing up. I imagine, denying that Messiah came in flesh and things like that, creating their own twisted truth that has similarity, because that's how it's deceiving. Any given doctrine, it's got to have some kind of like truth, or represent truth, or have similarity, for it to be deceiving. It's not just all false 100%. I mean, that's what it ends up being, but people's teachings aren't, their doctrine, it's not 100% just like, here's the truth, Messiah doesn't exist and we don't believe in Messiah. That's not going to deceive too many people, even though there is traps for that, for people who just don't even believe he existed. But people like in the church world and stuff, they're not going to go for that. Most likely not, But a Gnostic teaching, and we don't even have to guess, because there's these other books that exist that were made and written later, and the evidence shows, from what I can see from research and stuff, that they were written a little later. But these false walls would have already started to exist, Um, so it's not surprising that there are other books. The devil has his books, and the main difference is, that basically you are God. You are like a God creator. You are your own sort of salvation. That's like the main difference, because Gnostic teaching will talk about, within, that the Father is within, and this is a true teaching. The Spirit is within us, but there's a certain truth on having the Holy Spirit in us, and that requires true faith and, repentance, all that. Whereas Gnostic, they, as far as I know, they sort of go away from that repentance, true faith. It's just the secret knowledge of finding God in you that's already there, and then you embrace your own God within you, and that's what the gospel of Philip would mean. That Father is the innermost. Um, and they talk about in and out, inward, outward. They have their own certain language that resembles truth, that resembles Messiah's teachings, but they twist it. They put a big twist on it, so it's similar in a lot of ways. But you'll notice that the Gnostic teaching, like I said, doesn't really have much anything to do with repentance. It's like forgiveness of sins through faith and all this. It's just the secret knowledge of just finding and accepting that you are God already. And you just have to find that and embrace it sort of like the modern New Age, nothing new, nothing really different. Um, there's actually, like, Hinduism is it's not just like one thing, but many people don't even know or realize that there's all kinds of teachings that evolved with that, but like in general today that people think they kind of have that spirit. It's the same idea, you know, find that that God, that deity in you. So it's not very much different than New Age. Sort of Hindu is modern, like, you might see something like on Facebook, some people sort of like not pretending, because they do believe it, to some degree, that's their own truth. They found God in them, and it's just embracing that. It's nothing to do with like really repenting or the true faith, forgiveness of sins that comes through faith, in Messiah. But that Gnostic sort of, or anything similar, is just finding and acknowledging God. You are God, sort of, just pretty much like that. It's pretty much like that. And that's the I've read enough, like, here and there, but I just stay away from them. But just enough to know to talk about it with these other books, Gnostic Gospels. They are radically different, and yet they are similar in that certain way. The Father is the innermost, um, and they talk about within and from without. But there's certain language that they use, and it's so obvious. It's a dead giveaway that they're Gnostics. It's just about finding God, that you are God already, and embracing it. And then they use, the Messiah prayed on earth as it is in heaven. But these sort of spiritualist other religions come in with their as above, so below, and it's Gnostics are the books are pretty similar, but they go pretty radical on this the spiritual thing, and they think it's like all secret, and even that's somewhat similar, because the Father is hidden from all those that don't seek him, but yet he's close, just a breath away or something like that, like how Paul said, like true intentions, repentance from the heart, and that's how far, it's not far from everyone. And that what was I going to say? The secret? Yeah, well, the kingdom, the mystery of the kingdom. But the Gnostic thing goes like, it takes a part of this truth and just establishes it goes off on another path with the secret stuff, and then they really embrace that, and you just find God that's in you already, and it really doesn't have to do with the thing it does is it does away with the Messiah being the Son of the Father. They sort of try to strip the authority, I think, of the true way and the Father's plan, because they focus on yourself, that you could just find this. You don't, the Messiah is not the Son of God, not really, with Gnostics. And maybe it's mentioned in there that he is. I'm not sure. Can't remember now. Maybe so, but that's not the point. They take the emphasis off of Messiah, whereas the scriptures, it's like all pointing towards him, and they sort of point towards themselves, selfish, that he's the firstborn from the dead, the first of the new creation, perfect, and the high priest, they kind of go away from all these truths, and that, he's the mediator, um, atoning for sins for his people. You don't really need any of that truth if you go into Gnostic stuff, because you just have to accept that you're God, and that's it, pretty much. And maybe appreciate some of Messiah's teachings. That's what makes it deceiving, is it could mention him, but it's not in truth. It makes some lies in there. As above, so below, like Freemasonry and other stuff. It's all similar. That is true. Father, bring heaven, on earth, basically, on earth as it is in heaven, because obviously this is a positive prayer and plan for the earth to have the order and everything else like heaven, which means, that heaven, there's no disorder, there's no bunch of sin going on, but I think that's why that those other books too, they pervert that, because I don't believe there was sin in heaven. That's just me, though. That's what I've been led to believe. um, it's the corruption is down here on earth through man, and then everybody sins, so it's not, you know it's because of man, not because like angels came and corrupted everything. We're more than capable of doing that just on ourselves. And the scriptures teach that the heart is deceitful above all things, and Messiah emphasized on that, the things of the heart. The weightier matters of the law would be like the things of the heart, keeping the commandments in spirit and truth, not just, letter, because the letter is dead all by itself without the spirit. You got to picture it. The letter is just religion. It's outwardly physical. There's nothing going on inside. True conversion, spiritual conversion, Messiah said, when you're converted, feed the sheep. So something happens, you're converted, change. And that's the, focus from that point on. The change, it's a process. It keeps going. It doesn't stop. And anybody who's striving for that perfection, it seems like the devil comes at you way more than some unbeliever. It's like the wrath comes at sometimes on you, like the temptations, and, hatred, try to, corrupt you. Like I said, but humans are all capable just of themselves. They don't need help from angels to, to corrupt them. If the heart is deceitful above all things, then it's pretty clear to me, everything we do or say of ourselves without his help and truth, we're just going to be corrupted in our thoughts, beliefs, actions. And the judgment was on man over and over again. I've done a few videos on my beliefs and putting some scriptures together on what I believe happened. That the judgment was just on man, just like Genesis says. But anyways, the Gnostic teaching is deceptive, and I think I usually like to say there's like foul spirits connected to false things. where it leads to like some other false belief, and then you start getting corrupted somehow, whether it's slowly or right away, or I don't know for sure. Everyone has their own experience, but I believe there's some nasty connection to these things. That's why I'm so strong against it. It's not because I'm trying to suppress truth like they make it sound like, people that believe in these other books. Like, oh, you don't want anyone to know secrets, No, go read them for yourself. Definitely not doing that. There's definitely nothing in there that makes me go, wow, I'm holding back some severe truths, secrets. Nothing, not even remotely like that. I say stay away from them as far as like believing them, Suppose you could read them. But beyond that, that's my advice, my belief. I do that for myself. I don't just recommend it. I do that too. I don't stay away from that. Because there's so many contradictions that people don't want to look into or acknowledge. And like I said, I think it's deeper. I think it's deeper than that. It leads to weird, I don't know, it's something's foul about it. Something's not right about the spirit on people that heavily start believing in those books. I've said it before. Is that true for all? Maybe not. Maybe not. There might be some exceptions, but I'd say most. That there's something off about their teaching and their intentions, the spirit that I'm discerning that's not good. Not too many people would like hearing that, but it seems overall concerning his truth is that you're not going to have very many people liking what you say or teach what you believe. It seems to me his truth is in the minority, and this would just be another one of those things, the gnostic sort of thing. These other books that came later, 2nd, 3rd century or whatever. And I believe they existed, the people existed during the disciples' time. They started coming in already, crept in secretly. We have a few verses on that they come in secretly to devour, and this devouring is a spiritual thing. It's not just like physical, although I suppose, it can and has been like that. But there's, spiritual meaning to that. Corrupts their heart, mind, spirit, and leads them on some other path. That's not the true way. And I think that's the intention of the devil with these other books overall. That's what I believe the intention for that is to confuse. And when someone's confused spiritually, he's got you then. Just a little bit off the true way, well, that's good enough. You don't have to be 100 miles off it, just maybe 1 mile. And that's good enough. Now go work on the next group. And then confuse and bring in lies and heresies, and then go on the next group. He doesn't need the groups to stop. He just needs them to be deceived. Because he can't stop it, I don't believe. He couldn't stop the Bible, the scriptures, from existing. If he could, I'm convinced. And if people could have done that, they would have done that. I'm absolutely convinced. Why would they do anything else? The best way is to just get rid of it all, so that people grow up in a deceived their system, beast system, and don't have any scriptures to help them, guide them, through the spirit. The meaning of them, no, nothing, it's just whatever they say in their books only. But I don't believe that was possible, because the Father didn't allow it, and preserved it the way he wanted it preserved, and it was actually preserved. And I know some people they go a step further and they start questioning everything on the actual scriptures we have, like, well, maybe this is false and this is false, which leads to, because they're all connected. Anybody that knows the scriptures, at least to some degree, if you question and take away something, that questions and takes away something else, and it keeps going like that till the whole Bible's gone, till all the scriptures are gone, like like saying Paul is false. Yeah, but Peter and the others said he's a brother and they worked together. So now you question the disciples and that maybe they were deceived and false, and then that's connected to the Messiah, and you could keep going back like that. So it's my strong belief that whatever he wanted preserved, we have. I'm definitely not worried about other books. And by testing and proving all things, I've convinced in my own mind, after testing these things, that these other things are foul anyways. It's not something that's missing, like, oh, we're missing that. And why wouldn't our creator do that? Create his instruction manual and put it together in an official, like, book, even though there's no perfect translation, but still, preserved. Why wouldn't he do that? That's in the scriptures within themselves. You could do studies and see that is what was going on in Israel too. They kept these things. They kept scrolls and preserved them, and in books. Moses is told, write this in a book, all the instructions directly. I know people on the outside, they can't, I'm using internal evidence to prove, they say you can't do that, but this is not for them. This is for believers that believe and have been led to believe in truth. The scriptures teach that. So we even see a pattern of that happening. So it's not a wild assumption or something to say the Father ultimately had all the scriptures he wants in there in a book. It's not a crazy guess or assumption. We could use scriptures to back that up. And I think Paul said, like, in every synagogue, they have Moses, meaning the writings, and the other scriptures too, obviously, but they had this in every synagogue, and some people make it out to be like they didn't even have any scriptures. I believe they always had it. The true people always had access to it. Throughout, Israel's, from Moses to Messiah, they always had them. And there would have been many other books, just like there is today, so trillions of books everywhere about all kinds of topics. They would have had many other books out there too, from the pagan nations and all these other things, or false believers. So there's a certain set of scriptures that they knew, and he had prophets that had his spirit come upon them for guidance, for truth, for prophecy. And they knew absolutely, and they were in agreement on what these were. But when I see, some of these other books, like, really being taught, and, want to talk about it, okay, whatever, but they actually make it, like, on the same level, and they believe them and teach these things from these other books, that's when I see a problem spiritually. Discernment. There's something about, like, the book of Enoch and others that it's hard to put in words. I see somebody and I'm not discerning something that's good. There's something off that's like sinister, and they might even be genuinely believing in that. That's not my point. Obviously they believe, most people believe in those books, but I see something off that's hard to put into words. And I think that's what it means to test the spirits, when you have spirit in you and you ask for these things, he gives you this discernment. Otherwise, how on earth could a carnal man without his spirit test spirits? How could he do that? You can't unless you have his spirit in you. And he does it, really, he does it through you and for you. It's not your own power discernment. It's not like your own, like unique to, to me. But it is me, but the acknowledgement comes from above, it's not without his guidance. I would have been deceived and just fell for it all, or whatever trap, a trillion traps that there are in this world. Without his guidance, I would have just been sucked in to whatever. But I rely on that. I rely on him and believe he's doing that, People want more proof of that, like hard evidence, something physical, and I can't give it. Can't like give them some kind of satisfying carnal thing for an answer. I just can't. And really, that's what it comes down to. It really does. Those who don't have faith, they just can't see. There's nothing you could say to prove it carnally. But when that faith comes, then they could see everything you said and remember everything you said and start seeing the same things you're seeing. Then it all clicks and starts making sense. But until that point, I mean, they just, you gotta believe and be renewed, born from above, receive his spirit, just like the disciples did at the proper time. Then they remembered all the things in the past that Messiah said, like he said, you will remember when the spirit of truth comes, but meaning that they don't understand it right now. Very little to no understanding of the spiritual things and spiritual words. And even just some simple truths that scriptures teach, even simple things, not even like truly like spiritual, really, just proper teaching, even, because without his spirit, you're just going to have doctrines of demons. That's true for everyone. This is, so the field is a level, no one's better, no one's getting, what I'm saying? This would happen to everyone. It does happen to everyone. You will just fall for a bunch of lies and myths and fables and doctrines of demons, of which we're told that he doesn't want us to fellowship with demons. So there's a spiritual power in darkness, and it's doing this work, confusing people spiritually. And then when you have these in you, you're not who you're supposed to be. There's foul stuff going on. So you're not pure, you're not virgin. It's like committing adultery spiritually, fornication with our Creator, with our King. You're not pure and true. There's something foul going on. And you're teaching foul things and lies. Not feeding the sheep truth, but feeding them lies, because Messiah did say, feed my sheep 3 times. And it hurt his feelings. It hurt his feelings for him to question that many times. Do you love me? Then do what I say. Keep my commandments. Feed my sheep. And by the time the 3rd time came, he was just frustrated and broken. because I think he was genuine, but the reason why that happened is because he wasn't truly seeing it yet or doing that yet. And then the three times is, divine, three, perfect. When the Spirit of truth came, and then further as he matured, that would have really sunk in on what he said there and why he said it three times, because it's important. It would have really sunk in, and he could see it, but he did not see it the way he needed to when he was telling him that. And there's other examples and evidence for this that disciples didn't understand. They were called out, but they didn't have the Spirit yet. I don't know what people expect today. They think it's some kind of, it's very, very deceptive on what this is. If you got music playing and jumping up and down with a crowd, this is the Spirit, Not only is that, it could be true for you. Um, it's not that by itself is wicked, like to have joy or something, but it's deceptive because this is not happening to most people. They're receiving another spirit in those mega churches. And I'm convinced of it because every time I see something like the preacher man and the people and stuff, it's just all foul. I just know. I don't know how else to say it, but then someone would say, I'm crazy. Why are you calling what's so good? And you're saying all this is false, Yeah, I'm saying it's false. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I trust on, his discernment. And he just tells me, this is no good. How do I know he tells me? Because it's like authoritative. I just know. I don't know how else to say it. And then if I'm not sure, I ask. That's all. Is this correct? A month later happens, and I get the same thing. This is foul. It's not that I even want to believe it's foul or not. It just is. It just is. It's not that these people are all going around killing people. That's not my point. But, spiritually, it's no good. That's what I see with these books, too. I keep getting the same answer. And I was unbiased. Like, show me. If these books are true, show me. Tell me. And he hasn't told me that. They're just not the truth. And they're deceptive books used to suck people in and get them away from the truth. They start believing in, maybe even focusing too much on evil, I don't know. It's good to expose that and know that it exists, but you don't want to get sucked into it too much on trying to find the bottom of the pit, because you won't find the bottomless pit on evil. It just keeps going. Smoke keeps rising. There's no end to the beast. There's so many lies and deceptions and traps around every corner, and they give us so much confusion. You start to try to trace a path, but you can't find the original way, because there's like, oh, it divides three ways here. Well, 1 in 3 chance if I go down this way, but then that path that I just took now goes 4 ways. Well, maybe if I get 1 in 4, and it just webs like that. It's like a web to try to find some of this evil that happens today. We just don't know some things for sure. We can know enough that, and we're like, oh, that's no good, but like fine details, I don't know, because they throw in so much confusion and opposition and all this stuff, different people saying different things everywhere. And if you you'll go crazy trying to find like 100%, like, is this what happened? Did they kill Kennedy? You know what I'm saying? Just some carnal examples of the world, that they do this on purpose, I think, because if you have a few different paths and confusion, you'll never be able to go and attack them. Not that we're supposed to go and like attack and kill, but it's harder to expose the right people or group or thing. They protect themselves, I think, through these many different paths, and have people focusing on some carnal kind of things, like every time election comes, abortion. And I'm not saying that's might have not said that right. Those are important things, like abortion's evil, but you know what I'm saying, they bring up the same kind of things, and then they all focus over here, up here, but the problem's way deeper than that. Nobody touches it. The people that try to touch it, they look insane, and that's exactly what I think they've done to make them look insane. Look at this guy, he didn't graduate high school. Get your GED, bro. You doing all right? You need what medication are you on? This is the kind of stuff people will tell you. If you even just touch a little bit or question it, you don't even have to say a lot, just question it. Oh, you need to get your GED, man. Why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? How come they never respond with any intelligent, something to give back, to offer back, to counter it, at least? Counter a little bit, just at least do that. But no, it's just, that's what YouTube is full of. And concerning like his truths, spiritual things and doctrine, I've done that on YouTube, made comments, put my opinion in, my belief, offered some kind of like, check out the, what do you think about this? And I've consistently always gotten back similar things, like of that spirit. It's just like an attack on you. It becomes personal, and like something's off with you and your mental. They never offer any scriptures back. They never counter anything I say. I'm just saying these things happen in the past, and I'm being more careful about that. Maybe less trying to stir the pot, That's a process too. But I'm just saying these things have happened, and they happen all the time, like with people, all subjects. So I could see how divided everyone is. It's never going to work, whatever someone wants to do. It's so divided and corrupt. It truly is true. A house divided can't stand. You can't, someone can, well, this is our house. This is the truth. Everyone come here. Yeah, but it won't work. Why? Because it's extremely divided. So it just won't work. I don't like being pessimistic about these things, but at the same time, we are basically a bunch of weak losers to the world, because we don't fight their battles and their wars. Not concerned with that kind of war. And I think he gives us enough understanding to actually see. We do our part, we do whatever we can. But like, as far as making a name for ourselves in a group, we're going to go and dominate, it sounds good, right? But isn't that what they really wanted to do? The disciples, and even the Pharisees and disciples. That's kind of the attitude they had, right? Let's get this kingdom going. Let's take over. But then he said, the least of you will be the greatest. What? Must have been in their minds like, are you crazy? How to, yeah, come on. Yeshua, what are you saying? Can't you see that's a contradiction and stupidity according to the world's knowledge? If you're the least, you can't ever be great. That's pretty much what it is, though. But who's following that? So it's just not our time. We're not going to be great, rich and famous, powerful, dominating the earth. How could that be when the teaching is contrary to that 100%? Does that mean we don't spread truth, tell people truth? Absolutely not. But I'm talking like on a carnal establishment, religion level, with your own name and denomination, or take over. Think about this if you want to do that. Think about and look at the last 2,000 years with some clear eyes. That's what they tried to do for 2,000 years, all the different groups. But Satan has it all divided, But right now, they do want to bring that back to one. But notice who's doing that. The Catholic Church and Roman, all these powers, high powers with this mother church religion. Powerful, glorious. Look at the palace and all the things in it. Look at all the people worship and honor the Pope. That's what you want me to do? You want me to do what they're doing, like what they're doing? Can't do that. Can't do that. But I'm not suppressing truth, though. It's just that I'm not doing that specific physical, carnal thing. Go out and dominate, create a Messiah. If he's your perfect guide, if that's what you believe and that's what you say, then you won't go any different way than he did, which is basically lower and lower until they kill you. So what they're saying, some people, is to do the opposite of that. How could I do that? Spirit's telling me no, it's no good. Then I got scriptures to always back up. I never want to teach anything that I can't use scriptures to prove. I could easily prove that, Now, whether someone agrees with it or interprets it some different way, I see the interpretation. I see the spiritual meaning, but I can't help if somebody else doesn't. I try to tell them, hopefully they'll receive truth, but I can't force it. Walk as he walked. He walked, like I said, he was a loser to the world. In the world, he's a nothing. And that's exactly what he taught his disciples to become, but not losers for the kingdom, just losers from the world's perspective, but great in the Father's eyes and his kingdom. Rejoice when they mess with you and, hurt you, falsely accuse. What? Another crazy teaching from the king? Rejoice when they mess with you and screw with you? Oh, and pray for them too. Make sure you pray for them that they, and maybe that the Father has mercy on them, see the truth. Oh, you want me to do that while they're slapping me and shooting me spiritually? Slandering and falsely accusing. Yeah, that's the example. Otherwise you become the devil. Otherwise you know better than, like he said. Don't even the tax collectors do that, which were just known as, I guess, greedy sinners in general, tax collectors. Everybody would have known what that meant. We could still understand it now. Even a tax collector hugs his own, is good to his own. What gain do you have? What benefit do you have? What reward do you have if you don't do anything different than they do? I haven't came across a teaching, an understanding, once understood, back it up with scriptures, everything, that doesn't make sense. I don't know of anything. Now, the human nature won't like it. It can fight and kick, but it does make sense. What reward, will you have? You do exactly what they do. No different. You're not set apart. You're not high calling. You're just like them. Makes sense, doesn't it? So the spirit of like domination and control, it's no good. But I'm seeing that like everywhere. People are like so thirsty for domination, controlling people, making a name, a household name, their own denomination. Why do you think all those denominations exist? Because they always had that hunger for it. To be proud of something. Look at my thing I accomplished and established. Look at it with your physical eyes. See how great I am. And, you know, if you are of the truth, well, you'll bow your knee to me. And you have to go through me. And you have to go through me. You know, start getting devilish over there like that. If I ever say that, you know, better I die. And you have to go through me to get to the Father. Somebody says that, that's spiritual discernment. That's a big red flag. Something's going on. It's not a teaching that exists anywhere. Where does it say you have to go through and become like Peter to, you know what I'm saying? Or any other person. In fact, the opposite was taught. Some of you are saying we're of Paul, and we're of Apollos, and we're of like Barnabas or whatever other name you want to throw in. We're Calvin, we're Lutheran, you know. They want worldly gain and fame and pleasure. Who doesn't? That's the human nature. That's like what we would all want. Until the Spirit says no, then we start not wanting to do that. But the human nature, though, everyone wants that if they could. Just not everyone could, because not everyone could be a king. You know, in this world, not everyone could be a president or a leader, you know, of big things. But people would want it if they could. It's the intention of wanting that, you know, like what's your intention from the heart? What's the Spirit saying? The intention on that. Intention. But I haven't discerned too much good when, you know, when I start seeing that thing, it's usually not good. It's frustrating, it's disappointing, because it's hard to say anything or get them to see it. It almost seems like as if it's over, like, oh no, I'm seeing this in this person or that person. Oh great, you know, pretty much over. They're never gonna see it. That's not what I'm saying is truth. It's just that seems like there's such a good chance for that, and it's disappointing. Just don't see too many people turn away from that lust of power and control. You know, it seems to keep going. So it's like, you know, once you're like working for the devil, it's like, I don't know, too many people come back from that. I don't know what else to say about that, because I can't say too much, because I'm not saying who can and can't repent or anything like that. But, you know, that's what I'm saying about these foul spirits, these things with these books and stuff. Like, people become hardened with whatever if they got something off that they teach, they just keep going. Don't ever question it. It's like that full preterism camp, you know, hardened like rocks. You can give them so many scriptures and contradictions and teachings and problems, and they won't see it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to believe they're wrong. They'd rather hold on to pride and not be wrong, and rather, for the sake of the truth, put yourself down for the truth. You know, and sure enough, the leader of that camp has literally like 30 books, having a great time, you know, selling, making lots of money. What are the odds? What are the odds that I see a bookshelf and a lot of books when I discern that preterism, that full preterism teaching is foul? What are the odds that that's also a connection spiritually? That's what I'm saying. Nobody is spiritually messed up in one thing. If you see one major thing, there's more. There's more. It's all connected. And it's hard to believe that that's what people are. Like, it's really that black and white. Messiah said, you either, if you seek to do, those who seek to do the Father's will, they will know true doctrine. They will just know, like I'm saying, I just know on some of these things that, I just know it's true. If you seek to do the Father's will, you will just know true doctrine. There's so many things he said that it's like, people don't even know he said. He's basically saying you'll just know. Yeah, he'll just give it to you. You'll know. How do I prove it? How did Messiah prove anything? Think about that. What did he do physically, Now, through contradictions, he proved some things, exposing like their lies, contradictions. But you know what I'm saying? How did he know he had the truth? That what he was teaching was truth and what the Pharisees were teaching was lies? How did he know? Who taught him? Who gave him to know? The Father, the Creator. So then he does that for us too. Now, this goes against pretty much all of his teaching is disgusting to the human nature in the world, because they want to see like proof and science and all this stuff. And here's another teaching that they cannot accept and they will not accept, and that's just the way he made it to be. He's not going to go and try to prove every little thing and have debates and all this stuff. He just knows. And that's the kind of confidence that our Creator has, and he puts that in us. Doesn't need to stoop down to their level and prove everything scientifically. And they knew that Messiah spoke with authority. And so he was taught by the Father, not scholars and stuff. His own private, one-on-one lessons. He didn't go to their schools and stuff and their library, whatever they had, Who is this man who knows writings? And he's not even learned, and he knows writings. How does he know writings? The scriptures. Well, he gives us the answers, Anyone who seeks to do the Father's will just know true doctrine. Now, those that don't truly do that, they seek their own glory. And now that's another foul teaching to most everyone, It's a foul teaching. Think about it. This is like absolute authority with like no gray area. You're either this or you're this, period. I don't mess around with gray or lukewarm stuff, is what Messiah was teaching, saying. I vomit out lukewarm stuff, wish you were hot or cold, not like warm. It's not puke you out and you become cold. There's no such thing as warm. Those who don't seek the, Father's will, they seek their own glory. Who can admit that? Who's going to admit that? Is that guy that's selling 30 books going to admit that he's doing that? Can I prove or do something physically to prove that's what he's doing? That's what the intentions are and everything. It's corrupt to other people. Or am I just going to look like the crazy, evil, judgmental person? What do you think? What do you think a believer has to go through? You're always going to look like the crazy, insane person that's judgmental. Instead, you're warning people, trying to get them to the Father, to truth. That's your true intentions. Not to gain followers, but just to get one or two people out of these places so they can have truth, because they're being led by snakes. And the blind lead the blind, and both fall into a ditch. And then, I've been called mystic and spiritualizing away things and stuff like this. What benefit or value does that have? walking in the ditch and falling in the ditch. This is spiritual. You know, he really did teach spiritual lessons, things of the heart, things you don't physically see all the time, you know, and all this stuff. The picture is something like the spiritual thing. You got people leading people, and if the leader goes in the ditch, everyone else falls in the ditch, and we're all stuck in the ditch, you know. It's spiritually true, though. But they don't even have the spirit to discern anything, so they're just going to call you a heretic, and, well, you know, you're the false accuser and liar and hater, Mr. Judgmental and all this stuff, condemning. And you're just doing exactly what the Messiah did. No different. Say, like, you guys are lying about such and such, you know. Then he'd give a parable, and that's it. Did anyone like it? No, they didn't like that. They got angry, and they thought he had demons. Come on, see, the same spirit is going on. Same people. Of the devil or of the Father, that's it. Everyone has the same attitude, same spiritual nature, the human nature, a carnal nature. Everyone's got it. Some are weaker in some things here, some are, you know, but everyone has it. Everyone has to get rid of it, overcome it. Where it's all about self, and that you can't see spiritual things. That's why the blind guides, blind leaders of the blind, they have eyes, but they cannot see. Isaiah prophesied rightly about you people. Interesting how he said about you people hundreds of years later, and he's saying he prophesied about you. What do you think? Could I still say that today to people who are just obviously false? Isaiah prophesied about you people. Yeah, it continues. It keeps going. That wasn't just for them. This beast, this enemy of truth, would start to grow and spread out, you know, and they were a type. And the Jerusalem, the carnal kingdom, if you will, where they focused on carnal things and they're not spiritual, they're not from the kingdom of heaven. It's all outwardly, no spiritual understanding, no inward change. So when you don't have that, you're left with a nice temple and a city and synagogues and religion and physical outward stuff that's supposed to teach you spiritual things. But when you leave it to just the outward stuff, you become like they become, religion. Outwardly, it sicks. It's for our admonition that Israel, its whole history, is like the carnal representation of the kingdom of heaven. We don't want to be like that. We want to be spiritual. But, you know, within this kingdom, there was true believers and prophets and things. But, you know, overall, you can see that it was from the earth lowly. And it was meant to fail, you know, and people probably have problems with that too. Just something that the Father has given me to see clearly, you know. I could say that, but it was with the purpose and intention of first the natural, then the spiritual and the teachings, and to show what people are and prove that they can't do anything good, and all the many different teachings in there, you know. It was purposed ultimately by the Father. He let it fail. And Jerusalem was destroyed, you know. But ultimately, it looks like he's coming from a losing game, that all his people are going to lose. But from this point forward, the kingdom of heaven is preached, meaning there's something different about it. Before John the Baptist, you know, you could just say it was like the letter of the law. And it's by faith always. People get confused and messed up in this. But virtually all these people, most of them were just carnal. They didn't have any spirit or anything, you know. Messiah found one man that was a true Israelite, he said. True Israelite who has no guile in him. See, I believe he was living, you know, proper, you know, interpreting and living properly, not just by the letter and carnal and outwardly and prideful and all this stuff. Otherwise, how on earth could Messiah say, if he says something is true and right, then it must have been? Not that the man was perfect, literally or anything. It's just that he was a true believer, this Israelite, whoever he was. Notice how many I don't know why it just went black like that. Oh, my hand, my God. So then he came to live it perfectly and be a perfect example of these laws and commandments. And we gotta be spiritual. You gotta focus, because without it, then you're just religion outwardly. Don't do this, don't do that. Oh, I physically do that. I'm a good, but you could be totally corrupt, totally corrupt. Even keeping, it's like a lot of these physical commandments, it's a whole step higher for us. Yeah, we want to keep these physical things too. They didn't go away. It's still sin, but it's a sin to recognize that that's the true way. No, it's a whole thing higher. Don't even hate. That's murder. No, that's a higher thing. And it just happens to be that if you live that, you'll never do the physical thing. If you're overcoming that spiritual, and it sure makes sense, doesn't it? It's logical and orderly. You do this, then you won't do that. But those who are not spiritual, they're sinning in the spirit with their heart, their mind, hatred, jealousy, right? That's the things he's really concerned with, the higher thing. And it took a long time for me to start seeing this better. Like, what happened? What on earth was the difference? Well, Christianity says there's got to be a difference. The commandments went away, we just follow him in the spirit. They don't know what they're saying, though. So they interpreted that difference completely wrong. But even saying some true things along with it, follow him in the spirit, yeah, that's true words. But this difference is that whole thing was like a carnal representation of the kingdom, types and shadows, all of it. And examples of the commandments too, The Messiah lived all these things in the heart. Did he break them physically too? No, he didn't actually commit a physical adultery because he understood spiritual adultery is lust. He didn't break the Sabbath because he understood spiritual rest. You could do this with every single commandment. But, they like to cherry pick some things out and say it's just totally vain and not important anymore. At the same time, it's worthless keeping the commandments if you don't have the Spirit in you. But that's exactly who they are. That's who they are, and they accuse you as being the false believer for wanting to keep his commandments in spirit and truth. And that includes not being a sinner physically. It's like he still cares about that. It's just that there's a higher thing going on that exposes the false ones, because he said Paul kept the law. Saul kept the law. He said concerning it, it's perfect, And obviously he made, he would have known. He's not saying he never literally sinned. That's not the point. But he was on it. He was living it daily, and he was corrupt. So there's so many things that could go wrong, traps, But just because that temptation is there, that's what you can become. Am I now going to say don't keep the commandments to show how much liberty we have so we don't become like a Pharisee, when it's them who are that don't have the Spirit and can't discern anything spiritual? I'm not going to now stop saying that the commandments are, they're useless now. I'm not going to say that. It should be a given that there's always a temptation to become religious, focusing on just the carnal, physical things. Why do you think he said the flesh profits nothing, man? Because the priority is living in this, completing these spiritual laws in the spirit. And that's who Messiah, that's what he came to do, to live it and to be an example spiritually, physically, everything, um, of what the true way is, how to live it. And virtually all of them that he was exposing, they pretty much all of them, save like a very few, were corrupt and just carnal, man. I'm from above, you're from beneath, you're like Adam from the dust, from the earth. And that has a spiritual meaning, lowly, carnal, natural, like the brute beast. And then from above is spiritual. You see the Father, you see the Messiah, you see his truth through that spiritual understanding, which is only something he can give you. It's not a natural, I read the book, I study this physical thing, or I have this way of studying. And if you study like this, you'll never go, like I read in that few videos back, a comment focusing on what? Carnal things. Can I prove that he's carnal? Could I get him to see that, or other people to see that this is carnal and that's what I'm discerning? No, I can't. I can only hope that it just sparks somebody, to repent and believe in truth. But you can't force it. You can't get them to see it, The garden of the nuts, us, versus such and such name, insert name there. You're either nuts or you're of this man. Now, why is that so hard to believe that people worship the man like that? Are they going to admit it? Are they going to acknowledge it? Are they going to come up with excuses until they're blue in the face that, no, we're not doing that? Yeah, sure. That's what the Pharisees did. You got to realize that that's what they're doing. That's what the carnal nature does. It always makes excuses. It never admits its faults, and it can never admit anything wrong. That's like the foundation of starting to receive truth and wisdom, is admitting you've been wrong in areas spiritually, very much so. And, even just sins, any sin, whether it's of the heart or something, it's always of the heart before it's like a physical thing, People lusted before they ate the fruit. That's why we're focusing on this spiritual thing. Like I said, physically stealing is still evil. It's still sin. It's still a commandment. Don't do that. That's the guide. But if it's not even in my mind, then I'm not going to worry about the physical thing. I'll leave, it's sort of like for children, carnal people. Teach your kids the commandments, like physically, like the Father taught them to the Israelites, Then when you start maturing and growing up and you put on, that his commandments, laws, is a tutor, a guide, and the goal is Messiah, then you put on his faith, righteousness, and then he teaches you to walk like Moses taught, to keep these things, keep them. But he's teaching us to keep them, all these things spiritually. He's doing that, and only he could do that. If you have a false Messiah, you won't have that teacher. You won't receive that teaching, because everything else is just carnal. Anybody, any man could say, don't commit physical adultery and talk about it. Anybody of any religion, okay? But you can't teach them to live it, to know what it means and actually live it, No word games, because even people can pretend like they know, and they don't see it. It's not important to them. They can't see it. They just can't see that it's this or that. Can't see it's sin. So our mediator now is leading us into the promised land, the kingdom. And it was a physical picture of them, Moses leading them to the promised land, And they had their hope too. It's not like they're going to be in the kingdom, the ones who, they're going to have a part in the kingdom, those who are saints. It's just that they're for our benefit to learn from. This is the natural sort of way first. And I'm not even saying the prophets or what, like they weren't spiritual at all. I don't think I'm going to make that claim. It's just But at the same time, I don't know if they were as spiritual ever as, Messiah was like, it was radical. His truth is so truly unique and different. I mean, literally the first spiritual man to ever walk the earth. What is that? Think about that, man. There's no other teaching like this. There's no other teaching that, even when that death is sleep, they can't even get that right. His truth is unique. Everyone else teaches pagan nonsense, floating with mortal souls and stuff, no resurrection needed, just for a body. Well, then, give them the scriptures. Well, they don't care. Eat, drink, tomorrow we die. That's the context of no resurrection. What the heck am I doing here? Paul said, I'm going nuts over this, losing my life, all this hatred. Oh, I'm doing this just for my own life. Oh, okay. There's no future benefit. Well, then eat, drink tomorrow and die if there's no resurrection. What on earth? You think he believed that he just floats into with his immortal soul and up to heaven or something? It's obvious he believed, and all the other true saints did too. They were given to understand the scriptures, that you just sleep and you literally need to be resurrected, or else there's no hope. The resurrection's like the foundation of the hope. There is no other teaching like it. Everything else is immortal souls and reincarnation, all this other junk. And I'm sick of seeing it already. But on the plus side, it's just confirming how his word is true. People can't do it. They can't teach what's right. They can't become what's right. Look at the proof. How come nobody knows what death is? How come? Unless his word is true and says that every man's a liar and his heart is, corrupt above all things, deceitful above all things, totally wicked and corrupt. They can't do anything right. I acknowledge that. I had my fall, and I'm glad to do it now. I don't want to rely on myself because I saw it was garbage. But people don't truly have that fall. Many call, they don't have this fall. They don't get to the point spiritually in their life where they say, I'm a rotten sinner and I believe it. It doesn't happen unless you're a true believer. Then you can see your sins and see how often you commit sin, just in your mind and heart, let alone like physical. Physical's like, whoa, you're a believer and you did that? You slept with like near kin? What is this, insanity? Hand this one over to Satan to judge and destroy his flesh, like Paul didn't care about sin or something. That's a major error, to complete any sin in the flesh. Our mistakes, I'm not saying we should have mistakes, but they should be like spiritual, you know what I'm saying? We shouldn't accidentally kill someone or murder someone, or I know people won't like what I say. I'm just saying it should be who we are. We shouldn't just accidentally slip up and commit adultery, something that big, because that's worse than lusting in your mind. It's still worse. It's still worse. Now, if the physical sin is still bad and worse, then why on earth did they remove the fourth commandment? Oh, it's not important anymore. So I could prove that the physical thing is important for all the other commandments, but suddenly the fourth one isn't. There's no importance anymore. Now I would like people to understand that spiritual meaning of the commandments is higher, but it doesn't do away with it still, the commandment itself. It doesn't do away with it. And I've sought truth over and over to make sure this is right. I keep getting the same answer. This is the answer. It's consistent. It's logical. And this is what I believe and see. And it makes sense. And there's no cherry picking. Everything is the same. You don't pick and choose which commandments are good or evil, or you keep spiritually or physically. You keep them all. Well, and this is a process of keeping them all the true way. It's not like do all this first, like the Jews were saying. Don't ever murder someone in your heart, in your mind. Of course, they weren't thinking like that, but what they were saying by keep all the law first. I mean, you know what kind of crazy burden that is? Nobody has ever done that. That's the context of heavy yoke and heavy burden in that verse. And then in general, heavy yoke and burden is all the things that they added and had people do and put on them, but they didn't do them themselves, you know. So they're telling new believers that you got to do this and this and this, and it's going to cause them anxiety and confusion, delusion. They're going to wonder, you know, do I have to, you know, and they fall from that true faith that no, the Messiah's got you. But you focus on walking, you know, in the Spirit from this point on and keeping these things, but just hear him out and see what he tells you and just follow him. That's all. You know, it's not what they tell you to do first and do all this stuff first, you know. Really carnal, they were carnal. And they really like made circumcision, you know. You got to do that first. And so that's when once that context is understood, then it's a shame what Christianity teaches. It becomes an absolute shame. Unfortunate, but that's what it is, though. And Paul was not a sinner. He makes mistakes, but he was a saint, you know, that made mistakes here and there. You know, when someone truly believes and has the Father's Spirit and they call themselves, or someone calls you a sinner, you're basically calling the Father's righteousness sin. Because when someone says, are you a sinner? You know, if I say I'm my whole being, I'm a sinner, then I'm saying that the Spirit and everything else, the Father and Messiah, are sinners too. You know, so it's not a prideful thing as long as you understand what it means. But that's how they try to trap you. Oh, this guy says he's not a sinner. Oh, prideful. Oh, he teaches sinless perfection. You know, they start throwing these categories, these names in boxes that don't exist, and they apply it to you so they can take the whole thing down, your whole being down. No, I never said sinless perfection, did I? Never taught that, but they're quick to put words in your mouth. Abraham made mistakes. We could read about them. It doesn't even say sometimes whether it was sin or not. Just sort of leaves us to discern. He was still walking, you know, with the Father and make the least mistakes as you can. Yeah, that would be great. You know, that's the goal. You know, try not to make stupid mistakes, but you know, all the saints make mistakes though. But they're still saints, unless you're just full blown carnal, you know, and you're like totally off. That's why Paul was going like, should be saints, but are you yet carnal? Are you still carnal? So what started in the spirit, now you complete in the flesh. And if someone could just see that that's the purpose of keeping the commandments, like the higher thing that started in the spirit, but now you're trying to rely on yourself and physical things, and now you're going back to the world and back into the flesh. People don't even realize that that's what he was talking about a lot of times. They were like literally going back to the world and sin. That's what's carnal. And their carnal things that they did and made super important and said this is what people have to do, and they impose it on them. There's a context to all that, you know. You can have like some kind of tradition as long as it's done in spirit and truth, and you don't impose it on someone else. That's all. That's what they were doing though. These people were quick to tell people what to do and how to live. Carnal. And they focused on carnal things instead of focusing on spiritual things, heavenly things. Maybe that's why we're told that in scriptures, to focus on that. Did Paul teach that first? No, he didn't. Messiah taught that first. Treasures in heaven. You know. Now he said it in maybe more clear words sometimes, you know, because Messiah spoke in parables. But he taught the same thing. He was in agreement. He said he was a follower of Messiah, or he imitated. When you imitate someone, you know, you do the best you can to like make the same exact move, the same facial expressions, you know, imitate. So in this case, spiritually, in every way and form, he was wanting to imitate and imitating the Messiah. So that verse alone, I mean, just proves their doctrines are false, because, I mean, we got to know what words mean. Paul imitated the Messiah, and he was teaching people to imitate him as like an example, because he imitates Messiah. They start saying that's prideful, and he was prideful. No, it's not. It's just that when you're spiritual, you always seem to have to like watch out for every little thing, because people try to trap you at every corner. You exaggerate a little, and people take that literally, and they try. So it's like Paul's constantly like, he said a lot, he said a lot. Like, he had to go in circles a little bit, I think, because of the people. That's just what I've noticed. I had to do that too sometimes, you start seeing the same things. Like, they're so focused on the carnal. I'm like, I'm not talking about that. Why do you take me so perfectly literally, So then you have to explain. I'm speaking carnally. I'm exaggerating. I'm doing this, The Father's not a fool. Some people out there get worried, oh, Paul's false. Call the Father a fool. The foolishness of the Father is wiser than men. How could a true believer say that? Because his intentions are zero. But can they even believe that? On saying the Father is the fool, and 100% on teaching how foolishness man is. That's why you can say something like that and get away with it perfectly and rightly. He didn't call the Father a fool, but it's things like this, they focus on carnal understanding everything. So it's hard to believe, but this is who people are. Don't be tricked or deceived or think someone that's like really educated, smart, tons of books, that by that he's automatically like spiritual. Just like automatically assuming and believing he's spiritual, That tricks a lot of people. That bookshelf, Is that a sin right by itself? Well, for me it is. For me it is, but like, it's over here. Is it a sin all on its own to have like a bookshelf while you speak? I'd say there's no commandments, not, but for me it's a sin. For you it might not be. This might be one of those gray areas where there's a legitimate, just depends where you're at spiritually. For me, I don't even want people to think that I'm trying to look good or, look at all these books. That's how deep I'm thinking. I don't even want people to think that. So for me, it's a sin. For you, it might not be, no big deal. Just the intentions of the heart. That's all. And people's intentions are false. It's frustrating because no one sees, no one just understands, hears it. It just, it's not a joke. You like really do become like Messiah over time. Disciples, like they were. Should all be the same, heading towards the same goal. Or you're just going to be misunderstood almost every time you speak. And people, I understand like entertainment and stuff. People want entertainment. But when it comes to his truth, man, when it comes to his, go play a little basketball, whatever, that's fine. I wouldn't be against, entertainment. Do something that's just innocent, well, you could go off the mark there too with pride, and that's true for everything though. True for everything. But when it comes to his truth, I don't know why people are looking to be like entertained. What is that? Is the Spirit entertained? Spiritual things in the Father and who the Messiah is sitting at the right hand, Is that the goal? Is that what's supposed to be like? Oh, the Spirit wants to be entertained. No, it's the flesh that wants to be entertained. Now, if someone does have his Spirit, they're being entertained spiritually by just receiving truth, true food that's, allowed to be eaten. a spiritual lesson on that. You eat food that's forbidden, start eating that, it's going to corrupt your spiritual body. Oh, but he's spiritualizing, you know. I have no authority to say that. When you do. And you can pull scriptures together to actually prove that too. You don't just make stuff up. You know, feed my sheep. He wasn't talking about, you know, this is where you have to back off now. He's not talking about cheeseburgers. Oh, you never feed the poor. You know, no, I'm not talking about that. You could see why Paul had to constantly, you know, didn't say that. And my intentions aren't that. Yeah, if someone needs help, you help them, and you're nearby, you know. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that you got to see the spiritual meaning, the higher thing that he's very much teaching. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep, feed my sheep 3 times. You know, yeah, sure, feed people physically. If they don't turn a blind eye, it's not, you know, absolutely, but know the spiritual thing. That's where a carnal man, you know, they just don't see it. They can say words and talk about these things, but until you see it, until he gives it to your own, you know, your own mind, spiritual eyes see it, then you can live it. Otherwise, you just flap and say words, but you're not actually living it because it's not registering. It's not comprehending. And I've seen a consistent pattern. Trust me, I'm telling you the truth. You know, carnal people are very quick to attack the spiritual meaning and understanding because they don't like things that they don't understand or that are, you know, they just can't comprehend, or they're reading letters, man. That's like the letter of the law. I don't think people teach the truth on that. You know, Christianity certainly doesn't. But they trick people by making it sound good, you know. What they mean is oh, you keep the commandments, that's the letter of the law. No. It's keeping the commandments and being foul spiritually. You keep them for the purpose of show and look how good I look, but there's no true spirit born or intentions, you know, not truly from above. That's what the letter is. And that kills. And it did, literally, you know, but now we see it spiritually. It kills if we don't live by the Spirit, you know. Wages of sin is still death. I suppose people picture people drowning and they're just dead and they can't have a job and they can't. No, this is a very, you know, real specific thing here. This is death. It doesn't mean you're going to be smiling every minute. Be happy about things in this world every minute, you know. It doesn't mean that. It also doesn't mean you're going to be down and out always, because that's not true either. You know, he gives us everything, experience everything, ups and downs spiritually, you know, droughts. So then you got to do certain things in the drought. Extra good, right? Maybe it brings something that you didn't see before. It brings to your mind now. I'll do this when it's a drought. But they don't understand these things. They don't care. It's not always green grass and full of water, you know. After all, we're traveling in the desert. So a lot of, if anything, it's like a desert out here. Spiritually dead people everywhere. Let the dead bury the dead. Oh, mystic, huh? Messiah didn't teach spiritual understanding, did he? And what on earth is that? Let the dead bury the dead. Literal dead people can't bury dead people. Come on. One of my favorite verses that just whoa, boom. Man, that's tough, rough, in your face. Let the dead bury the dead. Can you imagine saying that to someone? You know, but you got to have true intentions, though. But just think about it. He did say these things, but his intentions were pure, you know, and teaching like that contrasts the truth from the evil and darkness. It's needed sometimes to say these are dead people burying the dead, and gives you a picture in your mind, like, man, that's really bad. Like, yeah, they're dead, spiritually, come follow me. So they physically followed him, but we're doing this in spirit now. We don't have him right next to us, like, physically. We have him in the spirit and truth to follow, but they don't know what that means. Like, they connect following him in the spirit and truth as breaking his commandments. Like, and anybody who keeps his commandments, they're no longer walking in the spirit. No, that is not an automatically true statement, but they make it to be so. It could be someone's carnal and very much focusing on, they're not truly born from above. It's true, that could be. But it's interesting, the finger they point, usually they're the ones that aren't born from above themselves, and they point a finger. So they don't live by every word or like want to live or are concerned, If you're going to judge righteous judgment. He didn't say you can't judge or discern things. What on earth did they think his ministry was about? Much of it was doing just that. Discerning the wickedness and evil, and not having hatred towards the person, but exposing their wickedness, man. Whatever's wicked is wicked and evil and lies. He did that. Now you're not supposed to do any of that, ever. And how on earth are people going to see the contrast? How are they going to be spiritually slapped and wakened up? Because that's how the Father works so many times. He gives you revelation and truth, but he also very much so works through people. And if you don't do something, it's on you. He makes us like do things. It's him working in us, but we actually still have to, if you screw up here, you didn't do good, Ryan, you messed up. It's not like sit back in a chair like I am right now in the car and just, I'm saved. I'm saved. And because I believe I'm saved and the Father saved me and not myself, I'm saved. No, that's not the teaching. Because you believe he's the Savior, not you, and that's it. That's what salvation is. Total nonsense. Is part of that true? Believing in him, his righteousness, yeah, it's true. But, if it were that simple, we would have like 5 verses in the Bible and it'd be like, come quickly, Messiah, that's it, Just believe that you're the Savior. Come quickly. It's not so, man, because life is complicated. And we have like examples for everything. And things are repeated because, maybe just because we repeat things in life. So there's a lot in there, a lot of teaching that people aren't seeing and they mock. It's not a joke that you can't just open the Bible and have understanding. It's not a joke. You can't. You can only have so much understanding, but just that automatically, that makes someone spiritual and of the truth. No, because you're holding a book and you're reading ink. Something's got to, his Spirit's got to show you what those words mean so you can live them. By every living word, they're living words. Those letters become life. Like spiritually, you transform, you start doing these things spiritually. That's what's on your mind. Not just the carnal things, But when you're carnal, that's all you're left to. That's your weapon. That's all you have is a weapon, physical shield. But when you need spiritual shield, how's the physical one going to do anything? It's not going to do anything, Physical shield will help you from an enemy trying to slash you with their sword physically. But that's the carnal understanding. And it would benefit from like a literal physical attack. But what about if someone is attacking you spiritually? Which is very much what the devil is doing through people and using them. And they don't even know it. What if he attacks you spiritually? What kind of shield do you have now? Are you going to put on a physical shield and breastplate and go, look at me, man? No one can get through me. I wish people knew how deceptive it is, I just wish they would know. It's so deceptive. It's, like I said, I'm repeating sometimes too, but it's disappointing. And I don't want to look like I know everything or anything like that, because I never claim I don't know everything. Not even, it's a stupid thing to say or believe. But you become that to others just automatically by following truth, living in the Spirit, walking after the Spirit, the true way of doing that. You become to everyone else a prideful, self-righteous beast, which is amazing to me. You're foul, sharp, bold, very hard, harsh words. Everything is an attack to them. They just can't see it. It's attacking that foul spirit, and their carnal nature is what it's attacking. It's slashing, and it's making them angry. When someone gets really angry because like a truth is brought out, that's, what am I going to say? Some foul spirits going on. There's who they are. They're corrupted. See, their heart, their mind, spirit's corrupted. And so, devils don't like truth that they've never heard before. No one's ever spoken to them like that. And when they hear these things, they get really tense and angry, and blood pressure probably increases pretty quickly. The reason why that's happening is because, like I said, because the devil knows that he has them in a deception, and true words is the way the Father works. True words through, how he does it like this and how and when. I can't go into, but I'm just telling you the truth though. This is, a lot of times it's through what people say and do. He works through that. You did this, okay, I'll reward you. It's not that you did it, it's all of your power, but we do have some kind of part. We don't sit back in a chair and just, I never do anything now. But people make it out to be like that. As soon as you start working a little bit for the kingdom, you're automatically deemed a heretic and a legalistic guy because you have passion to, do whatever the Father's telling you. Who on earth was it? Who on earth is their Messiah? He said, I'm working. Was it the Sabbath that was brought up? They were complaining about plucking the grains and stuff, but then he gave them an example on, David. There was exceptions. He was hungry and stuff, and that basically he said, you falsely judged, and this is not true what you said. Did the Messiah teach to go do and work and do heavy labor and do things of yourself on the Sabbath? No, I don't recall any teaching like that anywhere in the New Testament, to go and work. The people say that there's no commandment to keep it directly and clearly. Find me the commandment that says to break it, for goodness sake. If they claim something, have all the scriptures ready and be able to explain them, spirit and truth and logically using scriptures, but they don't have that prepared, do they? They don't have examples of anyone, but Messiah taught certain things that they didn't accept, though. They turned this day into evil, carrying the bed and walking. He got healed. That overpowers anything else. Sometimes that's just the way it is. He got healed. Now let him go walk. Take his bed and walk. Mercy. If that's where your situation is, then mercy over judgment or anything else. It's you can do true good works. But he didn't teach to go and just do whatever you want and make it your own day and go out and work, make money and play and all that stuff. He didn't teach that. it's unbelievable what people claim, but then they never have the scriptures to back up what their claim. They attack one thing, but then the other side doesn't support what they say, and there is no support for it. It doesn't exist. So, the way I understand things, if it doesn't, if there's already a common understanding of what the Sabbath is, and that it's keep the day set apart, everyone would have known, right? Then if there's no teaching changing, like now go and do a work and do whatever you want, make money and do all this stuff, then why on earth isn't that maintained until proven otherwise? They're the ones that say that they're the theologians, exegesis and exegesis and all this extacursus and whatever stuff. I'm sorry, I'm mocking it a little bit because they don't follow what they say themselves. Do the simple thing first, then go to the more difficult verses. And they don't do that for so many things. Show me where the Messiah broke the Sabbath day. It doesn't exist. Where he taught it doesn't exist. Or the disciples did, it doesn't exist. Or that Paul was out, doing whatever his own will and not making it a special day. Doing whatever he wants, working and making money, all this stuff. Show me where this is taught. So it's a very safe assumption to assume that this is the meaning of it. This is the clear meaning of it. And they were doing that because it doesn't say they weren't. But they don't accept that kind of explanation. They say it lacks evidence or whatever they're going to say. But then they're guilty of what they're saying about their lack of evidence. There's no scriptures that said they break it. Stuff like this. All kinds of scriptures, they do stuff like this. They accuse and point, but they're completely, perfectly, 100% guilty of doing what they're accusing of. So it's important to know what the spiritual meaning of the Sabbath rest is, But people who break his commandments constantly and don't want to truly, it's not their intentions to follow him. They're not entering any spiritual rest anyways, even if the theologian says, oh, I know what it means. I rest every day. They're liars. You can't enter his rest unless you're living the truth, living his way. You can't, he doesn't just offer this rest to people who teach to break his commandments, for goodness sake, let alone breaking them, but teach people to break certain things, all this stuff. It's bad. It's bad. Their theology, they become fools, They're teaching, they become like the foolishness of the world. They become what the Father says the world is. Simple things that, like, how, what, 1700 years of this? No, it can't be. That's like the stuff that goes on in my mind. It can't be. 1700 years solid of wrong teaching. It's not even complicated. How? Or something else simple, their immortal soul doctrine. The snake says that. They don't connect the dots there. The serpent, the enemy, says, you shall not die. First of all, they don't make that connection. Father didn't say that. He said the opposite. And then also, the dead know nothing, and there's no work, there's nothing going on. And then other verses, in the New Testament, David sleeps unto this day, his grave is here. It's not ascended to the heavens, just in case all of you thought, because all of you probably thought and believed that in pagan stuff, that David ascended to the heavens. But he said he didn't ascend to heaven, and he's sleeping and dead and buried in this tomb to this day. Paul said, eat, drink, tomorrow I die, we die, in the context of resurrection. Like, if there isn't one, then you're of men most miserable, most to be pitied, because all your work you do even though it may be good, and it is good, but you do it just for now, just for this, and then it's like cut off. It's like no, nothing, just cut off. Like, why do I do this every day? Paul says. So you put some of these scriptures together, you could see that what the teaching means, what that means, sleep. And even Messiah says Lazarus sleeps, and they took him literally, okay? Because there's so many examples of Pharisees, disciples taking him literally. I wish I could do like a full thing on this, catch every single point, and teach that they actually had the wrong understanding. And then the church uses the Pharisee understanding, and they say the Pharisees' understanding is right when they actually didn't understand. But a lot of times the scriptures don't say that the Pharisees had the wrong understanding or didn't understand. That's just the way the Father inspired the Word to be, because he did give room for the devil to play and deceive people. When Abraham was using his wife like to get passed through the land, kind of using it as like a sex toy, was that right? Was that righteous? It doesn't say it wasn't, right? So that means it was. No, it just doesn't say. It's like, it's just telling his true story. It's just being brutally honest. It doesn't mean what some of the things they did was, scriptures say it, therefore we have to do that now. It speaks of what David does and others, and it doesn't always say this detail and such was wrong or sin. It doesn't always do that, the scriptures. So concerning the Pharisees, the scriptures just don't say it. Sometimes it does. But, a lot of times when they just said something, Messiah just kept going. They were blind. So they said, come on, what is this, a joke? Lazarus, if he's sleeping, then he'll be okay. He'll like rise up tomorrow or something, or he'll just awake. And then it says he said plainly, or something like that. He said plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I imagine him being just a little bit disappointed, frustrated. Don't think that Messiah wasn't frustrated or didn't have this was real life, he lived this. What we're experiencing is that same frustration that they don't understand. Because he's genuine. He didn't pretend like he was frustrated. And yet he knew the Father is sovereign and has all truth and knows all things, and that they have to be given truth to see it. He knew that, but it's still frustrating that they're blind, can't see. And there's a few verses to prove this, that he was frustrated. How much longer should I put up with you people? Flipping the table over and other things too, I'm not talking about bread. I'm talking about beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Then it came to them, he wasn't speaking about bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees. Beware. Warning, beware of their teaching. Many examples, man. He was so spiritual, and nobody else was. You just couldn't see these things, Couldn't see spiritual things. That's why he said, if you can't even understand earthly things, like if you can't even get that right, carnal things right, how on earth are you going to understand heavenly things? You can't. And so he walked away not knowing, and he said, what are you, a great teacher or something? Are you the great teacher of Israel? Obviously he wasn't, but people thought he was, and he thought he was, but truly he wasn't, though. You must be born again. It's like, okay, now what? Show me how, He just didn't understand, though. Born through my mother again. There's so many examples of this. Nobody teaches this, man. If you don't have the spiritual understanding in so many things what scriptures teach or Messiah taught, you actually end up believing damnable doctrines that are totally opposite and opposed to truth and wicked and evil. It's just the way he made it, I think, If you don't have the spiritual understanding, you will have doctrines of demons, period, because that's what the carnal understanding is in this case or this case. And that's no accident. Don't think that's an accident. it shows you, he's showing you who's carnal and not, because a spiritual person could not teach what they teach and teach this damnable doctrine, whatever it is, evil, wicked, spiritual person couldn't do that. Absolutely not. At the very least, doesn't mean that they're true and they're gonna, not automatically, but at the very least, they won't teach what they teach because they have the spiritual understanding and see it, that it's true. And they don't teach that. So you end up with, it's like a trap. It exposes all the false people that are still yet carnal. And when you're carnal, you put all this together, okay? They weren't spiritually converted. They're not true believers. They're as good as like an atheist or something. They literally don't believe. But they're pretending. They're wolves, man. They're just religious. Their goal is to look good and attack the true believers. That's it. I know that hurts people's ears. And I'm not trying to trash them. It's just too much or anything. It's just the truth. That's all. The truth is just, a lot of times the truth is just gritty and sharp, and it's going to cut and bleed. It's, not fun. It's usually the Father's truth is always offensive to all the people back then too. Your way is hard. Your way is corrupt and messed up. And he says, is it not you that your way is corrupt and messed up? So a carnal person will think that spiritual is corrupt and a deceiver and full of demons and blasphemy and prideful and self-righteous. And the spiritual person will see that the carnal person is all that. That was going on with the Father and the Israelites. It's the same thing. They thought his way was hard and corrupt and evil. Better to go back to Egypt and sin. But he told them, your way is corrupt. It's because of you and what you do that's making this happen to you. They haven't surrendered, man. They talk about it a lot. Just surrender to Jesus, but I don't see it. I don't see it. So what on earth is that? How could someone say those words and then it's not happening in the churches and the assemblies? What on earth trick did Satan pull off there to actually speak true words and it's not happening? You must be born again, and believe in him, and it's by grace. How could people say these words and not be converted? What on earth is that, man? Maybe I'll see that on a deeper level in time. I've never really questioned it just like this before. Like, what is that? What is going on there? Something's keeping them from denying themselves and truly believing. Something about the words or just foul spirit in it. Just something is very strong in there, keeping them from doing that. And see, that's the stuff I try to see spiritually. I'm thinking right now and trying to see this spiritually. But I don't try to think like he just gives me. I don't try to maybe if I think for 8 hours, I'll figure, no, that's going carnal now. If it doesn't come to me instantly, then I know it's not of the Spirit, If it comes to me right away, then, he's showing me the spiritual thing. But if I sit and think for 8 hours, just me and my brain, just looking and thinking, that's just me trying to figure out something on my own. It's what they do. I don't do that with truth, I look at it, I see my understanding might not be complete or off or something, I just leave it alone. So show me when you want to show me, I want to know, but then it just clicks. It just makes sense, and then other scriptures come in and they connect the dots, and it's all proven in my mind with the scriptures. But then when you use the scriptures for teaching, like somehow the carnal person just can't see that, though. And that's maybe one of the things that suck the most, because look, here's the scriptures, but you can't get someone, force them to see what you're seeing. So really, the Father doesn't have us going around proving our business, proving everything, like yes, test and prove all things, but I'm talking like on a carnal level to prove that like he exists and prove it like the way they want to be proven. Okay, their carnal, illogical, uh, not inspired way that they want it proven. That's not what we're doing. We prove all things spiritually and through his word and logic and even carnally, but uh, it's never going to satisfy it. I've told people that before, and I think it actually, I don't know where they're at today, but like at my last job, somebody, he just went into discussion, like he just wanted to talk. Other guy that worked there, like actually my lead technician, and he just started, I started just giving him whatever I understand, and he was like, he never heard anything like that before. Any of what I was saying before is just like, you know, I could see he was like in shock. Like he actually was like surprised and like, man, this is making sense. Some of the things you're saying, like it was resonating a little bit. And I think that's what truth does. If somebody's, looking for truth, a little bit, the deep down inside, it'll resonate somewhere in there. But, and then stuff like, I think I said something about proving things. I'm like, I just told him straight up, I don't prove that he exists. That's not what I do. I'm not interested in that. Like, I just told him my confidence. That's all. Like, I'm well past that. I don't need to prove to anyone that he, and I think even though that doesn't really satisfy the answer, I think it had more profound effect than somebody trying to actually debate and prove and start talking about like, look at the creation, look at this. I didn't do that at all. I said, I don't need to. And that was more profound to him, I think, like showing confidence instead of like playing from deep, defending constantly. I don't need to defend anything I do, anything I say in the videos or any of that. If I'm wrong, Father will show me my errors or whatever, and lack of understanding or something in some area. Just know, that's what I make sure to, that's what he's going to do, because it's like it's not up to me. And just let it go. Let it go. You show me if it's bad, it's bad. Show me. Otherwise, I see it, and the scriptures back it up, and that's it. But they're so carnal in there. That's what I better wrap up this video. But that's like, Trinity. You're never gonna. They're so made up in their minds. It's a carnal doctrine and it's pagan, and they don't see that that's an issue. I could prove it with the scriptures it's an issue, but can they see the spiritual meaning of what the Israelites did back then with the golden calf? Can they see that there is a spiritual everything to all these natural things, and that we have to live like that too, not just like literally bowing down to calves? Obviously, that would still be a sin, or worship something like that, but can't they see that you got to do this in the spirit? This is where the Messiah, Yeshua, teaches us, leads us. We follow in spirit and truth. And they don't know what the spirit means, follow the spirit. They can say it, but I'm telling you, they don't know what it means. They're not practicing and doing that properly. They don't know what it means. They come up with sort of like their own meaning for that. It's almost gnostic-ish. And that is true, follow in spirit, but like they have a sort of almost gnostic flavor to it. They just don't understand what it means. Then they say like we're mystic and stuff, when it's like that's exactly what they teach with their Trinity and following the letter is keeping his commandments properly. That's what they would say. Following the Spirit is evidence that you don't keep certain commandments, but you just walk in the Spirit. Like, well, it's not for all, it's just the ones I choose. Just the ones I choose, you know. We know that the devil has attacked the Sabbath day very much so. So that's one of them, but there's others things too. But people focus on the carnal so much, That's like a blatantly wrong teaching that they do on that. But it doesn't even mean that they're keeping the other 9 commandments in the Spirit. There's no concern there as long as everyone looks good and just comes in and looks good, And a lot of people aren't breaking those physically. There's people out there that aren't doing that all the time, committing adultery and like physical idolatry, like, bowing down to like a golden calf statue or fish. There's a lot of people that don't do that, but trust me, they're doing it spiritually though. And that's a problem. That's sin. Wages of sin is death. Cut off. Learn from the people. They were cut off from the land, right? From the kingdom. You go over there for a time, whatever, you're cut off from Israel, from my people. See? Physically. He's over there, cut off. Well, the kingdom's spiritual and people are spiritually cut off. They don't see him, they don't know him, they don't have him. And he's not, and they're not in the body with the people physically like they were back then, They're not in the body. This is the way it is right now. We do enter now too. But then there's people that go, they go on another level with this too. There's going to be an actual reality to this. It's just, this is the way it is now though. There's real people and real kingdom, but they do away with that, like, and then they think they're extra spiritual. There's a group of people like that too. Sort of do away with like a lot of prophecy, and like the Bible's sort of just like a book that, it's a different spirit. I've already discerned it. They used the Messiah's name here and there. And they might even say some right things about like the spiritual meaning of certain things. But there's something really off and foul about it, because certain language that they use that a believer never uses. And certain things they say and do. And there's certain things they say a believer could never say. Like they just see the prophecy in scriptures, like that's how Jews wrote back then, and back then in the history, that they don't believe that it's truly inspired and divine, and it's his word. They separate from that. So, and there's other issues. And they mock. All of these people mock. Now, I found a group that maybe they wouldn't call themselves full preterists, but like they're pretty close to the same thing. These two groups. They mock any kind of prophecy, like Revelation was like, yeah, that was a long time ago, 2,000-year prophecy. Like they laugh at that, even though it's exactly what scriptures do. I made video about this. Deuteronomy 28. Moses wrote all the words down 1,500 years before Jerusalem was destroyed. That was prophecy of what would happen to them by a strong nation, a tongue that they don't know. This is what their fate would be as a nation and city and everything, as a people. It's going to crumble if you keep going like this. And they did. It happened. Then they would be dispersed physically, literally, but now like there's a spiritual meaning to that. Like all his people in the kingdom of heaven now are all scattered too. And it's not so much about like, it's not about bloodline, even though there does remain like some kind of importance. But ultimately, like concerning his kingdom, it's not important. It doesn't matter. Like anybody could be a believer. And his people are scattered just like the people were scattered back then. So it's interesting what happened to me with physical Jerusalem. in the city. It got scattered and crumbled. But then also, like, the kingdom of heaven has been scattered ever since too. It's scattered at the same time, basically, because they were turning the world upside down, and then all the churches of Asia fell away from the faith, fell away from what Paul said, and he could see it. Wolves came in, and then it was destroyed, and then after that, it was just brutally attacked ever since. The kingdom suffers violence. You could really appreciate these words when you see the spiritual meaning of all his teaching, that there's a reality to it. What do you mean the kingdom suffers violence? He obviously wasn't talking about a man with a sword and a wall and dirt right now. It's not what's going on right now. That's not the teaching. The kingdom up to this point, such and such has been preached, but the kingdom of heaven, somewhere in there, he says they're trying to enter, and it's like suffers violence or something like that. They're trying to like brutally come in, it's being attacked, that's what he's saying. It's vicious. So we're attacked from like all sides, with the people and devil and the system, everything. The kingdom's attacked, but it will prevail ultimately. It's just that it looks like it won't. He's coming from like a losing side, like it doesn't look so good. It looks pretty grim. But then he still has a kingdom and people hanging in there, and they know. They got the true faith of what's coming, that it's going to be victorious, but it doesn't look so good right now, Like in reality, physically and stuff, there's not too many. Most are dogs and they're on the outside. So there's a spiritual meaning that does apply now. But like I say, it is true now and it is to come, because this is not like these other snakes teach. This is not the fullness. This isn't it. Not all prophecy has been fulfilled as its second fulfillment, like the real thing. It got fulfilled like in the type, as a type, but not the true thing. New Jerusalem is going to be judged. And New Jerusalem is not a physical city anywhere right now, Just like Jerusalem, his people, consisting of a few believers, true, and many false in the kingdom. Like, that's the picture, But the false ones were truly not of the truth in it, So concerning the New Jerusalem, there's many called everywhere. And then there's a few believers that really believe. And they're everywhere, all over the earth. And there's a judgment coming. There's one last big judgment on the earth coming, I don't think it's going to be good, If the days aren't short and no flesh would survive this judgment specifically, it's going to be, whatever this is, it's going to be bad. So it was fulfilled, yeah, it's going to be fulfilled again, but it wasn't fulfilled in its fullness. That's what I always say, there's so many examples of the type and then the real thing. Moses was not the fullness of the Messiah and the true way, I mean, he was he was a type of the true way. He wasn't the actual thing, the real fulfillment thing. Melchizedek also was a type. That's not where it ended, Messiah was this Melchizedek order priest. And so many other examples, but I think, the harlot in Revelation is judged, and he shows him, come look at this judgment of the harlot. Look what I did for you, Check it out. That I actually, you thought it was gone and over with. And didn't look so good. You know, this judgment would never come, nothing would ever prevail. Look, I'm here now. Come check out this judgment on the harlot. Your smoke goes up, you know, and people are tormented and sad about all the religion and power, and all the snakes, you know, are all sad and it's all crumbled. They say that happened. You see, there's so many ways I could attack that full predator. They say that already. That's the fullness of that happened already. Wow, man. So I just can't imagine, because I could see the evil and the deception and the power and control of the harlot, Roman Catholic Church, and all these other things. You know, could see it. It's evil. It's just totally corrupt and not for the people at all. And they say that's already, that judgment of the harlot already, yeah, it happened as a type. Like Jerusalem was his people, and most of them are harlots. So Jerusalem really was like Sodom and Egypt, you know. But this is now true for the whole entire world, New Jerusalem, on a grand scale, you know, worldwide. That what happened there and how it grew to be corrupt throughout this whole time period. This is what's going on a massive scale. So it obviously takes a little longer than 40 years. You know, and it's spread. There's a temple on every corner building that teaches lies all over the earth. Population is almost filled up to the max. Well, some say, you know, like it's not too far that it would sort of stabilize, but you know, that's, it's just crazy times, you know, this of what it's become. That harlot always existed spiritually. Revelation, you always had to come out of that spirit, that system. It might have looked a little different 500 years ago or whatever, but it's the same thing. Same people, same attack, same deception. Now it's like far worse. There's so many more deceptions and rabbit holes than like 1,000 years ago, I believe. But you know, people had to come out of there too. It's always true for every generation. They don't understand what the kingdom is. They don't get it. Kingdom of heaven is how you live. And, you know, you work for the kingdom. But there's a process. There's a long time period. You know, and there's some other connections that help get people see the picture. Like, oh wow, I never saw that. You know, it just if you have the right puzzle pieces spiritually, you'll put together a true picture. From Abraham to Moses, or Abraham to Messiah, about roughly 2,000 years of a physical carnal kingdom, if you will. I don't really like calling it that, but I'm not saying the saints were carnal, or you know, but I'm just, that's the best I could to make a contrast with the kingdom of heaven. Compared to the kingdom of heaven, this was like the carnal, natural representation of a kingdom that fought and just couldn't do. You know, if they did what was right, then they would be the head of all the nations, and they would, you know what they would do? Eventually convert all the nations and be the head of it, the glory right there. And they failed. They didn't do it. Why? Because they were carnal. Because they didn't have the law written in their hearts. That's why. They couldn't do that themselves, you know, and there was just such a few people that overall, you know, most of his people were just constantly in disobedience. So it just, now the same thing is happening concerning the kingdom of heaven. Spiritually, you know, most people are in this spiritual disobedience, more so spiritually than physical. It's just more so. It's not that the physical is not important at all, but that's what's going on in the spiritual kingdom of heaven right now. And we're not seeing these physical things like a lot of what we talk about. You know, it's darkness. Darkness in high places is not about like, and there is things you can point at, you know, it's true, but at the heart of the matter, it's spiritual, the corruption. You know, that's the heart of it, going back to the source, that their hearts and minds are corrupted, and then it leads to all these nasty works that they do and teach. So there's a process of the kingdom being built like it was sort of physically from Abraham. You know, it grew, and a lot of people, you know, there was from a few to many concerning this whole entire kingdom. Now that's what's happening. Like, you know, literally there's more, you know, people. It's not like all just spiritual too, but you know what I'm saying? It's spiritual, but it's growing, and it's a little different in that you know, some of these things aren't realized. Like, they're not going to be they're not going to be that full picture of the type until it's realized. But a lot of it is happening just like before. So we become priests, kings and priests, a royal priesthood that Israel was supposed to be. People knew their scriptures. That's what they said. They were supposed to be a royal priest. He's quoting from the scriptures. He didn't just make that up. But they failed to be a royal priesthood and a royal holy nation, set apart, you know, representing the kingdom of the Father, his way, his kingdom. This is the true kingdom, you know. All these other things are just pagan. We'll take care of it, you know. And you'll be the head, and all the other nations will start coming, you know, and they'll be under you. You guys are leaders of the kingdom here. But that didn't happen. And ultimately the opposite happened, and it looked like all hope was gone. So I think just the Father likes coming from a point of looking like it's all bad and there's no hope. The underdog, the true underdog, is the Creator. No one has made themselves an underdog more than him, because the whole world, you know, doesn't believe in him, blasphemes, slanders every day, all the time. Concerning his kingdom, it doesn't look so, you know, doesn't look so good, does it? Just looking at the world today, you know. But we know what's going on. So these things will be realized someday too. But for now, you know, it's very much spiritual, and you have to be spiritual to enter it now. You can enter now. You can enter now, you know. That's the true teaching, and it's true for the future too. Like so many other scriptures teach, the rewards and everything, the fullness of everything is obviously not even remotely here right now. But we do have, you know, you can enter this kingdom and have some of the, you know, spiritual benefits. In part, it's not quite full, you know. It's not, no more tears, no more death. Well, you know, in part, that's true. Much better off than the world, you know. But, you know, there's a fullness of that too coming too. I think that's a good picture overall, you know, a kind of overview of the kingdom and what happened the 2,000 years and now this 2,000 years. It's the time of the Gentiles being called. That's what's going on. So you know what time we're in. It's the time of people who are not literally from Abraham's genealogy. That's what time it is, you know. Like, that's what's getting called more so than anything else, are people that are not from Abraham's, you know, with just a very few. It would be very few that are getting called, you know, of people who are from his, for this period of time overall. But spiritually, though, a Gentile is just an unbeliever, and a spiritual Jew, spiritual Hebrew, is a believer. None of that matters. there are Gentiles today. It's just that they're spiritual unbelievers. That's all. Blood doesn't matter. Spiritual Jew is a believer. Doesn't matter what blood or color. Like some people out there are making a huge, thing about it. Racism and stuff, hate. I think that's all I got, man. I think I need to get out of this truck. What else? Yeah, I think that's all I got. So that 2000, that time period, I think, is running out, winding down. Definitely at the latter end of the last days, I don't know how much, further corruption and everything has to happen, but it's not, so much has been being fulfilled. If you see these things on a spiritual level, a lot of things being fulfilled on a spiritual level, the sin, the crime, corruption, their kingdoms, the beast and the harlot is grown massive. It's huge. And it's still trying to pull more people in every day, and it is. And now it's trying to become one. They become powerful if they can join them all and become one. And they're obviously trying to do that, Maybe 20 years ago, people would have, everyone, yeah, you're a conspiracy nut, but now it's like they're not even trying to hide that. They make flat out statements that say exactly that, and coexist and all this stuff, bumper stickers, all our religions coexisting. It actually makes sense because these are all man-made religions on the coexist bumper sticker. They're all divisions of Satan. So the devil wants to get all these things to one thing, and they're all his. There's not a true one that's included in there. Okay, take notice. They're gathering the beast and the religions and the powers together to one. There's no true one in there that they're sucking in. The closest thing would be, I guess, Christianity, but that's the deception with that. They're spiritually being sucked in with the Antichrist spirit, and they're going to suck them in. And they already have, really, spiritually, but, they're unable to see what's going on. They're part of those other religions, like man-made. They're not the truth. They have some truth in there. Like all religions have some truth. They could say some true words, but it's no good. Christianity overall, it's being controlled and run by man. It's not being controlled by the spirit, because the true one that's, being, the author, the king of his assembly is being run by the head, by, his spirit. And it's not divided wherever it is. I mean, it's, scattered, but it's not truly divided. Whereas everything else is. This just makes for a whole lot more work to do to try to get people to see it. Makes for a whole lot more work when you have 1,000 false things that look like the truth. But I guess that's part of the work, What else are you gonna do? I wish I could stop them, but from lying. Well, I think I need a break. I'm getting a little headache. I think I just need to get out of this truck. Can't breathe. But as long as I'm breathing spiritually, I'm okay with not breathing very good for a few minutes and physically, but much more than that, then that wouldn't be good, though. All right, peace. Sorry for the, long video. I feel like a lot of spiritual stuff was said in this video from beginning to end, so repeating stuff, sure. Going in loops, yeah. But I think a lot was said in here. That if someone just watched this video only, all by itself, with just a little bit of the Father Spirit truth, you know, slap them out of their sleep. You know, not people who are in the truth, but someone who comes across, you know, comes across this channel, like hopefully it just pushes them in the right direction. That's all. And then I don't have, you know, you're in the body, you're true, good, but it's, you know, I don't do anything. I don't run you, rule you. It's not going to look like us, the religions, you know. If it looks like the nations, the Gentiles and unbelievers, it's no good. It's not even supposed to look like that. Do we know what it is to shepherd physical sheep? You know, you guide them, right, into the pen, whatever, the gate. But, you know, the point is, once they're guided just a little bit, then, you know, you've done what that's like your true work. That's it. Let it go now. Don't be attached to some kind of control, you know. Now those people could become teachers or whatever gifts they have. You know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever the Father has. Now they've matured at least a little bit enough to sort of get on their own. You know, not by yourself literally, but like between you and the Father Creator, you know, they can spiritually know what to do, what to say, what to pray for, all that stuff. And that's it. That's what a shepherd does. Leads them to the shepherd. And the shepherd reigns in them from that point forward. That's it. Not the man down here, not any man down here. I'm tired of seeing that because that's what I'm seeing spiritually. It's all that's going on is it's a trap. Then after they supposedly shepherd these people, they rule them and they keep them in chains. Never give them truth. They just keep mixing lies in there. It's not supposed to be like that. You know, it's okay to be you're supposed to, whatever the Father has you do, disciple. And you might shepherd some people, whatever, guide them. But that's, where on earth are people getting the authority to do anything else after that? You know, where's that coming from? It's coming from the enemy. It's not sin to have, you know, to be like a disciple and teach people. That's exactly what Messiah wanted them to do. But it's the point afterwards that they don't teach or give in any detail or bring up. What now? They just keep going. And it's a one-way street in them assemblies. You know, if somebody has a serious, like, spiritual problem or just a teaching that you think is way off, or, you know, show me. I don't want to hide anything, or scripturally use the scriptures, but we need to rely on the Father for the understanding in the first place, so that we're both not insane. And that's it, you know. I'm just, whatever, I'm not perfect and perfect understanding. I'm just giving whatever I've been given with no charge. It's here, you know. Here's some, what is this? Quarters, whatever, here. You hear that? The sound of religion. It's the sound of religion. Oh. Yeah, that's no good. That's no good. people's intentions are corrupt, and once that happens, they fall down a corrupt path, and that's it. So they need to get seriously slapped or corrected, or rebuked. Otherwise, they're most likely going to keep believing their pastor, which is like becomes a god to them. Let me ask my pastor. And whatever he says is like the word of God. It's deceptive, because you could ask anybody any questions, whatever. It's not wrong in it by itself, but it's what they believe is wrong. That pastor's actually the authority, and whatever he says, if my pastor says something you don't say, Ryan, that's authority. That's what my pastor said. Therefore, what you say is garbage, That's the mindset they have, not asking anybody questions. I could ask a bum on the street a question. Maybe they have something I don't have, a little gift or whatever, It's not wrong to ask anyone questions, but that's what I see spiritually. It's their authority. They never study or ask truth of themselves, ask the Father to guide them, lead them to truth. They carnally rely on carnal ministers for ultimately carnal truth. And that's it. I'm going to end the video. Peace. Take care. 2.5 hours long. Wow. Goodness. Well, that's it. Take care and peace, and seek truth from the Father, like I say always, through the Messiah. That's it. That should be someone's priority. Anything else, it could be beneficial or beneficial. It could hurt. Both of those things are down here. You got to ask the Father for all truth. I don't think they really focus on that in the church world. I think they want to keep people from actually doing that. It's my belief. And that's it. All right. Peace.